artificial reality of storms and beautiful outdoor days, even though it's really late at night. We live in a virtual world. We talk about that all the time, and that we are the social transmitter across the pagan world. We're the Daily Spell, your nightly show, which we're hoping is becoming going to become a habit really soon. And tonight, Mary and I, the two of us actually haven't been on together in a while.
No, we haven't.
You know, so yeah, because we all work at different times. And if you want to join our team, write to us at paganworldtv@gmail.com. I know we'll be getting our Pagan World TV email named soon, but one step at a time. Um, oh, I've been so much caught up in the internet world. I've been caught up in this. So I guess the reason I want to talk AI, and unfortunately, we will have another time for Andrea Joy. She says she wishes she could call herself to join us, and we'll see other invites out there. But join our tech team. We're getting it. If you haven't seen it, please look out for it. Lisa McSherry. It's on our new YouTube channel. So, folks, if you want to interact with us, do it on our new YouTube channel, Pagan World TV, at on YouTube. So if you're used to being on Magic TV, let's be perfectly honest, we blew the pooch. We'll be back on later this week. We'll talk about someday about the disaster that we made, but we'll be back, and probably on Monday we'll be back to broadcasting on Magic TV. At the same time, Pagan World TV is going to be also in operation, so that's another site we can get to. We want to thank you as we answered last weekend of a Witch Starter. We appreciate everybody who supported us. It's really a very good deal. And I'm sorry that everybody, that we had so many life changing events occur during our Kickstarter campaign. It's kind of sucked the air out of it. Um, but we
Yes, it
continue.
did.
But every cent's going to help. At least we got approved microphones. We've already sent microphones out to Neil. Dee, they're doing filming. A lot more equipment need. So check it out. And our swag bags are going to be fantastic. Uh, and we'll be utilizing them throughout the United States this year. Buy one today. All right. We're going to talk about AI. So since we talked about AI 2 weeks ago, one of the big parts of it that changed was the idea of CPT 3, which I was already praising, kind of being really interesting. We're talking about writing spells to GPT 4, which is now was supposed to come out months from now, came out a few days ago. And that one's even changing the world faster. So we're now plunged into this chaotic world, very deeply chaotic world now of the internet. And people are like, where's this all going? Where did it all be? And it's a combination of super hype and more hype. And then some of it's really interesting and some of it's downright dangerous. And so we're here. If you've got any questions about this, today's the day to ask because I think it does. So, Mary, how's your experiences been? I mean, we've been talking about this for a little while.
Yeah, I have not had a minute to play with Chat GPT-4. Uh, the mundane world has taken up a whole lot of my time this week. I will
Hmm.
try and play with that a bit this weekend. I have also registered for Magic AI,
Hmm.
which they have an interesting interface anyway,
It is.
positioning themselves as the wizards of AI.
Hmm.
Nothing available yet, but they look interesting, so I'm registered. I believe you're registered.
I'm on waiting. I am the 11th person on the waiting list right now. With all of your guys' help, you are there on the 11th. Give me 1 second, folks. We're looking at. I am bringing on. We're hopefully Cosmo. Let's see. Try again. There we go. This is the thing about live television, isn't it fun?
Of course,
Um.
it's fun, but if it were easy,
Hmm. Well, it is. It's easier than it has been. Let's not kid ourselves. This is like the easiest it's ever been in history. Uh,
well, it is. It is. We don't have to have a truck.
no, we don't have to have a truck. We have our phones. We don't need big processing boards anymore. We have our laptops. Not to say there isn't value in those types of bigger systems, and bigger systems are going to only get better. And now with AI coming in, oh my gosh, I am just so there.
Mhm.
Hey, there we go. We have our good friend Cosmo here.
Hi,
There we go.
Cosmo.
Yes. Sorry about that. I think I entered through the wrong link, and you would think I wouldn't do that.
Oh, I have no doubt. I mean, it doesn't matter. Yet soon the AI will make sure that we make all our appointments because we'll have our nanny
Yeah.
babysitter. No, I was just talking about since the last time we talked, we were
Mm.
talking about what CPT 3 was doing, and now they. Well, I don't know why. To this day, I don't know why they moved it up so many months for Chat 4, Chat CPT, and I've gotten access to it. Oh my gosh, it's like crazy. Um, it's just crazy different. And it really does frighten me of how much misinformation is still involved with it. I've been trying to check facts, and it's still like really terrible. Um, but it's eloquent. But the other thing that I was noticing, so Cosmo is the one who started with me with looking at this Magic, the
Mm.
AI. We know nothing about it other than they marketed right at me. I mean, you couldn't have written a better script
Yeah.
for me and our audience than that ad. And from it, we've gotten at least 18. What was it? 18 referrals. I'm waiting list number 11, and so many other people are there. So, so what do you think? Just let's talk. Do you think have you seen much change? Or is it just something that people are making up in their heads, or is there has there been a significant change even in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I think there's been quite a bit of change. Even today, I think it was today they dropped Mid Journey version 5, right? And so now the photos look
Mm-hmm.
exactly like a person. I mean, they're so realistic. And then you've got China that dropped their Beidou. They're
Mm-hmm.
competing. Google's trying to keep up. So even in the last few weeks, there's just
Mm-hmm.
been a proliferation of revisions, iterations of these products, as well as competitors, even like Apple trying to integrate this with Siri. You've got Copilot with the
Oh yeah.
Microsoft products now. So I think if we blink, we're going to miss stuff. And to your point, Chat GPT-4, it has the multimodal capabilities now.
Oh yeah.
You got
Absolutely.
video, audio, text. So the large language models, been enhanced quite a bit as well. And that's really the engine that drives that whole supposed intelligence, because it's using the semantic tokening and
Mm-hmm.
it's expanded the way it can do that intelligently. So it's getting much smarter about what it presents to you. Um, yeah.
So, so one stable point. So to counter this,
Mm.
one stable point, Chat 4, that came out, SAP GP4, they've now kind of mentioned and hinted that it'll be about 15 to 18 months, about 15 months before 5 comes out. So this
Mm.
is they're identifying for people with APIs and everything that was worried that 5 is coming right
Right.
back out. They kind of calmed the water, saying no, 5 is next year, and then 2025, 2026 will be Chat 6 is what they're hoping. But of course, it can start writing itself. I mean, I do think we're playing with forces we don't quite comprehend, and I always love that. Uh,
Very true.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we're on the cusp of a transition for who we
Mhm.
are as humans, and we really need to kind of revisit our philosophical thinking about who we are. Uh, I mean, if you look at some of this, you think about the next generation or the generation after that's going to
Mhm.
grow up with this technology. Is it going to imply that they're going to be even more isolated and within their world? Because you can imagine with this technology, for instance, if you don't like the person you're married to or whatever, you could create your own version, make them look just like you want, make them speak like you want, and set up a rapport with them, and all of a sudden you're locked into this virtual world. I mean, that's not far fetched.
Oh,
This
I
whole
think
notion, yeah.
It's not.
not only do I think it's not far fetched, but looking at what happened so COVID gave us a real answer to this.
Mhm.
Why would governments want to pursue virtual reality? Why would all of us looking at climate change really want to do so? And they discovered that working from home and all of that energy suddenly dropped. We saw a year of recovery of climate. So
They did.
if we can lock 50% or 50% of the population into being basically homebound VR creatures, right? It'll shorten their lifespan a little bit because it'll be sedentary creatures and something's there, but they will then have a perfectly happy life for very little. I mean, you talk about basic income, then it does, that gets
Exactly.
very, very, it gets very low if you're just a VR person. Hmm?
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Hmm?
we'll probably
But you
have to
could
talk
do
about.
VR exercise, couldn't you?
Hmm.
I'm sure you could, and
Well,
it
you're
would
going
have.
to have more universal income, right? I mean, you're going to
Right.
have more of these. So people who are getting some of their roles supplanted, it's
Hmm.
inevitable. They're going to need the time to retrain, to adapt. They need a little bit of a safety net. So I think we're going to see some of the economy that's going to evolve with this, because that's where we need to keep ethics, right? Ethics alongside this, because it's happening so quickly
Hmm.
that if we allow it to dictate and take over what we're doing, then we're not exercising our individual agency. And we need to protect that, because ever more, there's disinformation, there's potential
Hmm.
coercion of these tools. And so, in my mind, I think it just calls for us to make sure I think we talked about this, Mary, before, the critical thinking skills and understanding
Right.
our human biases and understanding how the tools are adapting to that, or the large language models balancing for diversity? Are they removing bias? Are companies having ethical teams alongside product development where they're thinking about these things ahead of time and not letting it get out of whack? So I think, but at the same time, we can't put our brain into the hands of institutions. As individuals, we need to be very protective of our ability to free think and not have, um, not just use these tools to do the thinking for us, in other words, which is
Hmm.
very easy to do, right? We've seen a lot
Of
of that
course.
with social media.
Hmm.
Yes.
So Tawny Key, thank you. She's in our that, and they're talking about ethics are key, and we need laws and policies to police those tools. Well, I think laws and all of those ideas of government intervention, I think it's gone. I think I hate to say Chat GPT 4 and a lot of the with decentralized systems, these banks starting to come apart at the edge. I think government setting these policies, it's going to be companies setting the
Yeah.
policies. It's not going to be. It's going to be what Amazon thinks across its multi-global system, not what the United States is trying to enforce on the United States Amazon. They're not the same company. Those are two different. One's an empire and one's a state. And I think people don't see that of corporations right now. There's Microsoft, the corporation, which is the super state. And then in India, there's a Microsoft. In America, there's a Microsoft. Those are the states. And those may be very different, but these big super countries are right on top of corporate status. And
Yeah,
so,
and you do have AI ethicists that are
mhm,
part of these companies, but the problem is the competition is so strong that everybody's falling over themselves to get out their next iteration to keep up with the pace. And I think we just saw Microsoft let go a few of their ethical team
'cause-
members.
yeah,
I don't know if you, so. But you know,
there.
I
yeah,
saw that.
And oh wait, was it Facebook? They let go their entire ethical team. I think they both did. I think a lot of people are throwing their ethical teams out of the board. Um, so one
well, they
thing,
may be consolidating some of it too, because there's some industry push on that. I know IEEE has ethical
mhm.
standards and committees that work on the engineering standards. The
Oh sure.
space industry. I'm part of Space Kind, so the space industry. I mean, I'm even thinking of this beyond AI with some of these other things like
Well,
intelligence augmentation.
well, so I've been hearing this for a while.
Mm,
Peter Diamandis has been saying this. Somebody I follow. He says we're now moving away from philosophy and ethics from being a philosophical one, an internal one, to one that we have to now engineer into our systems. When is it safe for an AI car to hit somebody versus somebody else? That's an ethical decision. That's now an engineering philosophy, right? Because it becomes realistic. Do we kill? Do we allow machines to kill? Is there certain things that they kill the owner versus killing somebody outside? In the car industry, this is a huge ethical argument, but it's not an ethical argument at the end of the day. It's a engineering one because at the end of the day you have to make a decision on the engineering, what it's doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you also have to keep in mind, why are we doing what we're doing, right? I mean, what is it the point of being a human being? What fulfills us as humans? What are we doing with technology to enhance our ability to have productive, purposeful, meaningful lives? And this goes even beyond AI. This has to do with space travel. The fact that we're looking at Mars to inhabit, we're moving to the moon. are we going to bring some of our same human frailties to new worlds
Well,
that we inhabit, whether they're external or internal? Or are we going
so
to, think about that?
so the truth is there's going to be a great filter into space. Less than half of 1% of all the human population will ever leave the Earth, and once that some of that leaves, it'll never come back. Hmm? I think it's an outward thing, but a very tiny part of the population is going to go into space. Um, uh, Now, mind you, I think space will be eventually filled with trillions of human beings. I think once we get out there, we're going to fill every nook and cranny. There's so much resources, so much material out there. The asteroid boats, the old needles. Once we get out there, I think it's just going to be anything. But I only think only a small percentage will actually filter out from the world. Hmm?
But that small percentage still shares in the collective unconscious of humanity,
Oh,
right?
sure.
We still have the same human biases. So even if it's a percentage or a large fragment, we really have to think about what it means to be a human traveling the stars and how we take what we're learning from space, the overview effect, for instance. How do we think about this planet? Or,
Hmm.
we're going off to the stars to terraform. Are there things we can learn and apply right here at home? And I think that's still as important as ever, especially with climate.
So
Right.
as soon as Melanie Silver is finished with what she's doing with her master's program, we're beginning a new show. It's called The Order of Library, and every week it's a real thing. It's called a cube. We're going to bring a cube on board, and we're going to fill it with knowledge. And the idea of this cube is, what if you sent it to another civilization? Is this enough of a cube to restart it? And we're actually going to build it, and we're going to sell them, and we're going to get the information on there, and we're going
Interesting.
to start. And it's going to be so for me. This is where my magic and my technology come in. I'm very much believing there's a technological item, a transcendental object ahead of us, which I call the library, which is the Akashic records, and where I think we're going to see where our records, our construction of these records, enough of it, combined with some some quantum effects we don't know yet, and we're going to find that library. I think the Akashic records are actually going to manifest in some major way within the next couple of years that we can actually sense and feel. Hmm? You know, even if it's just all the knowledge we are having, just kind of saturating us. Hmm?
Well, the other thing, we're having this conversation about AI, but we've got nanotechnology, we've got genetic customization, we've got quantum computers on the horizon.
Hmm.
There's quite a bit of different elements to the future that we really need to cast that net. And I think part of, we talked today, we chatted offline, and it
Yeah.
got me thinking, these are all the areas to think about, or augmented intelligence, the thing, cybernetic implants, not stuff of the far future, to your point, which you preambled at the start. This stuff is
Hmm.
happening quickly. And if we don't educate ourselves within our community, uh, and the key thing is to educate ourselves to be free thinkers through it all, to preserve the mind, to be able to reason and to educate each other, to learn from each other's cultures across the globe for how we can confront the next 50 to 100 years as a pagan community, as a magical community. That would be my thinking.
Right.
So Mary, you're a cell shocks warrior on the front line. You got it dragged into the AI world and the social transmitter. 2 years ago, you didn't even think any of these terms. Today, you're the general manager of a global, albeit tiny, but we got our toenails into global television network.
Yes. So, my thoughts on AI, the whole transformation.
Hmm.
Well, and to Cosmo's point, we have
Hmm.
to retain our ability for critical thinking to bring up my grandkids. I discovered the 13-year-old was not chatting with a friend, with some friends online. She was chatting with some bots online. Why are you spending 2 hours chatting with bots? Well, they're better than people.
Oh,
Is this healthy?
so Yes and no. I mean, they're talking to somebody, so they can be healthy. I think we're going to see a lot more automated teachers because they can spend an unlimited amount of time and infinite amount of patience with a child to
But
learn,
I mean,
right?
an automated teacher, yes, but hanging out, chatting, giggling. I thought this was a conversation with real people going on.
People play Sims. I don't know what
Well,
to say.
yeah,
I,
and
Mhm.
I
this
know
goes
people play Sims. So, to Cosmo's point, yes, you could make a, virtual spouse,
Oh, absolutely.
significant other. Is that a healthy thing? Virtual best friend.
For some of my friends who have had a really hard time attaching to women or men, yes, it would be it would be fantastic. It would be give them some companionship that they couldn't get elsewhere. So in that sense, yes. If it could be, if we could provide now, Japan they have robots, machinery that is more gentle than any human being with their elderly, and
mhm,
their elderly care, and the older people can actually request them. They can push and say, "I want to be out of this chair." And the machine comes up and more gently than a human being puts them into the chair, changes them over. So Japan has this really gentle robot culture. America does not
Right.
because we have this sort of idea of a macho America. But we can have those types of relationships. I mean, so I guess one of the things that I think is very interesting in Pagan World TV, Pagan World Project is about on Mondays. We get past everything. All our paperwork is in order. I got the new board position. I asked my latest, my last planned request. Everybody who actually I asked actually accepted the invitation. I'm so thrilled. As you know, Mary's of course is there, and Cosmos has been the latest person I've asked, the last person acted to join this board. We start Monday, where we actually have to ask the questions as an individual company. We're going to ask the big questions. We're going to ask the question: what is this new world going to look like? And I
mhm,
brought in people from all over, from different parts of the world to begin asking and answering this question. People who have people who've been taught in holacracy, which is a different form of leadership, and we're actually starting with a fairly blank bylaw system. We're not setting up a lot of rules right away. We're going to look for different ways and how we're going to play with this in a different way. It's not for profit, but I think we have a lot of questions to ask. I mean,
We
the
do.
TV and publishing is where we start, but we do have this idea of where we're going to take where we as ethic beings, as people in the system, are going to take this project. First of all, to be successful, to make these connections, to make these directories, to make all of this
mhm,
energy go. We have to make it successful, but also can we make it so it fits into a community that we like? And San, because I hate to say it, I think cyber nations, the idea of a cyber nation is coming. The idea of big, massive groups. I mean, Facebook and Google and all of these things have already brought these to us. Now imagine
And
that it's
they
now,
have.
and that what if now we get into smaller versions of it? What if we
mhm.
reach out? I want to reach 1 million people by the end of the year. I mean, that's
Yeah,
my
and
goal.
there's huge benefits to this. So going back to what you were talking about, Ed, and balancing, what Mary was mentioning, it's not so much starting out being judgmental, but it's saying let's understand the benefits
Mhm,
alongside the difficulties we may have
mhm,
and try to navigate that and educate each other on that. To your point, these are one of the benefits, helping those who might be less fortunate, the teaching, helping those who might
Yeah.
have learning difficulties, using it as a decision maker. There's so many opportunities to automate, but at the same time,
mhm,
I think one of the key pillars we'll have to keep there is empathy. Empathy throughout the process. How do we maintain our empathy as humans as we expand out and
mhm.
expand inwards through this virtual world? So I think it's really it's taking a balanced perspective, I guess is the key. I'm not
It
negative or
takes,
positive. I just like to take balance with that
Well,
perspective.
and let's
and
take a
I think it's an awesome tool. And
mhm.
like all tools, it's up to us to use it. And go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead, finish, please.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't want to come across as being very negative about AI because I do see it
Oh, you
as a
should.
positive
I think people
tool.
should absolutely. I think don't get me wrong. I think everybody should look at every negative aspect, not ignoring the positive aspect, because you have to be prepared in case something goes wrong. You have to have a plan. Like, so what is the worst thing that could happen? Well, it could decide to hunt down the nuclear weapons. Yeah, and actually, the government has already worked this scenario. They actually have plans in place in case a crazy AI starts hacking everything.
I
But
mean, is the Terminator now a possibility?
the Terminator, so the so the Terminator slash Matrix. Most people don't realize it's the same author. Hmm? Um,
Yes.
the Terminator was actually a predecessor to the idea of the Matrix. Um, I always thought that was surprising. It's always been possible. I mean, right now, drone advancement. So most people don't realize in 2020, between Azerbaijani and Turkey, there was a drone war that actually killed 44 people. It was fought completely by drones, supplied one side by Turkey and Iran, and the other side by Russia. And the world led it, and they had this. It was lasted like 4 or 5 weeks, and the only thing that was used, one army, the Azerbaijani army was going up against, got a huge amount of troops and everything else, and they went against the Turks, and the Turks just unleashed drones, and then the Russians came in with drones to help the Azerbaijani, and it became a testing ground. They killed over 44 people, and hundreds of vehicles were destroyed, all by drone warfare. And no one really talks about that, but that war has already occurred. Hmm? And it stopped. It stopped a full fledged army from crossing into a disputed territory along the Turkish Azerbaijani border. You know, now we hear about Iran moving with drones. You hear about the drones moving in. So we're already seeing the automation of weaponry. This has already happened.
And
It's
that is
sunset.
Well,
true.
yeah, and these are different aspects, right? Another aspect to look
Hmm.
at is the creative life. What do these tools mean for those who are in the
Hmm.
creative industry? What do they now have to adapt to, where now you've got more and more democratization through just putting in a prompt, generate some interesting artwork, or hey,
Hmm.
I don't need to buy your book. I'll just tell it to write me the book that I want to hear and I'll download it myself. I'll tell ChatGPT, write me a book in this language by this author who doesn't exist, and download it. Now I've got my own
Can't,
self publishing.
but you can't
So
copyright it.
yeah, but I'm saying that, that does create a dilemma though for those who are
Oh,
trying to have a voice in the creative world. So they're having to
so
recalibrate. And that's
so
yet another aspect of this.
well, so let's talk about pagan world for a moment. Well, how we're going to solve that. Let's talk about people. You can give us problems that we need to solve, and maybe that's what we need to do is maybe dedicate a day of show. Uh, I really didn't know, but I was talking to someone who wrote and sold books with AI. It was like, oh, that cool. If they can do it, they can do it. I mean, there's always been
Mhm.
schlock in the market. I'm about to put up a bunch of paperbacks tomorrow for sale. And I continue, trying to raise money, and some of them are just schlock. Some of them are just, they were made for the age to be at the end of the grocery store, so people would buy them. I mean, we did, that in every day and age, we've had a certain amount of it. It's just the amount quantity we're about to have. So that's one of the things I think. One of the things I'm looking at the pagan world is how do we go ahead and do that? And I think what the thing is that we'll have to keep an eye out on for people's behalf. People who want to join us, say authors who want to be a part of something, and we all act as self-observationals. We might even be able to program a chatbot or a hound. I'm really talking about building an army of pagan world's going to own an army of bots, and one it could be a hound that actually looks at our authors, people who are part of our authors group, and go hunts out people who are, go out there and hunt it down. People don't realize that's going to be very possible now. The copyright. I mean, we just got smashed on Magic TV for just even using the word Oscar coverage. Did you know Oscar's coverage is a trademark name? Uh huh.
No, didn't know.
I
Uh-uh.
do now.
Now, we do now. Hmm. There's always going to be people prefer human work. Is an actually is a Luddite lie. They all like price. We if you believe that every loved handmade clothing, we'd still have a handmade clothing industry that wasn't serving just the really elite, the special, or the very poor. Hmm? Because
Well, the
otherwise, because otherwise,
mhm.
all cloth is machine made. Hmm?
Yeah, I think those are short term though. Um, a little bit longer term, we're going to have to deal with the fact that interesting, novel creative outputs going to be coming from the AI, because it's built on the back of stuff that it's absorbed that we've already created, just like we've done when we've created
Hmm.
content. If you look at films right now, I can't even make a decision on what to watch because there's so much content oversaturation that
Oh,
it's almost
absolutely.
like it's reached a point where, what's the next step? And I almost feel like we're this Ouroboros consumer
Hmm.
looping back on itself. We're creating these tools that almost consume back on our consumption.
So
And the yeah.
Kevin Kelly says it. It says we design our tools. No, it's Pritchard. We make our tools, and the tools make us. It's been true since the days of fire. Once we started building fire, that became an external stomach for us. We saw our jawline shrink in combination of us inventing fire. We've seen, we were able to cut more meat. We were able to make clothing. So
Yeah.
our tools have always made us, including genetically, changed us to deal with it. So it's
But
been
here's the difference. There's a difference in this tool, though, Ed. It's that we're recreating our mental capacity. So, this is one of the first tools that's actually trying to duplicate the one thing that makes us unique across life is our human capabilities, our ability to predict the future, to reason, to strategize. That is right now, we're at the cusp of a new type of tool. And that's where we really have to make sure that, we're thinking through it, we balance it, we incorporate the best of what it's offering. To your point, within the pagan world project that you're creating,
hmm
understanding what are the best. But it is a unique tool, though. It's not, it's this now. It's taking part of what we were using up in our noggin, and that's pretty unique. We did have computers, but when
hmm
we hit quantum computing 10 years from now, and that starts being viable, things are getting real tricky, real quick.
Well,
We
I
think
think
it's
we're.
quick now. Now,
Oh yeah, I think that will be integration. I mean, we're going to see. So I've always believed. I just finished a piece on CPT-3, based on a whole basic ecosystem that's based on sensors, called rider monks and techno druids and telepathic trees and photosaurs, and it's an entire sort of technological project. Yeah, kind of been working on for a long time, but now the AI has helped me bring it into function of how to basically make intelligent forests that are self guidance with various types of tools. I'm designing a toy that I've been thinking about for years, and now I'm really close to thinking about putting it out. It's called a photovore. It means it eat light.
mhm.
Just a little creature that runs around doing that. It would be annoy people, but yeah, there's so much we can do. So
Yeah.
I talk about zero
Mm.
materialization. We're reaching disruption points of all kinds, and I think that we can teach the pagan community as a whole how to utilize them better. Instead
There
of
you
being
go.
in so much competition with each other, these tools are not
Mhm.
available to us, and they're cheaper in mass. I mean, if
Mm,
I could, the
mhm.
more Zoom rooms I buy, even I traded them versus everybody has their own Zoom room. But if we bought them in mass, they'd be cheaper and we get a lot more services and they'd be more responsive to us. It's hard for people to
Right.
understand, that some of this, if we can build some scale into our systems, Da Vinci, I'm talking about them. They're giving away their software now, their new video editing software for free. I'm talking to them about what does it mean to go on with them, and they're saying the more users you've got, the cheaper it becomes. So we
Mm.
could
Hmm.
so so there's a lot of software out there that we can get that we share, that are cheaper or even included in some of the prices we charge.
Mm, mhm. A licensing model.
Yeah. So
Pagan project, yeah.
yeah, I'm looking at Magic AI. As soon as I get their attention, I'm trying to get their attention. So,
Well,
eh,
if you don't, there will be other open source
oh
APIs out
yeah,
there, and we'll snag
oh yeah.
them. We'll be on top of
I'm
them.
already looking at yeah, starting on Monday because once we got our paperwork finished up, starting on Monday, we're gonna be looking at all those sorts of API. I've got this wonderful team. I just amazing. I kind of introduce more about them. Really unique individuals, really different types of thinkers. I think they're going to make a good group. And then we got a lot of people who are like backing us up. Pagan World is going to come out be a very different type of project. I'm very glad for it. It's something that I can really sink my teeth into. And I think a lot of more people can. And it's crucially important because one of the things I'm hearing. Let me get one last up. We're going to get some of that. Ivan just was on. I was on a report today with McKinsey reports. So I've got enough of a vocal voice that I could get into a room with lots and lots and lots of other people, but at least get the number for McKinsey report. And they were basically saying they don't think the search engine models that exist right now are going to hold up for more than another year to 15 months. They're talking about there's a good chance that Google can crash, that the stock of
Real.
Google for reals. I mean, because the CPT chat systems don't allow for a lot of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
If people start moving to the chat GPT systems and other versions of this and other search engine types of things, their big income, which is direct search engines, they're saying the McKinsey report saying that in 15 months we could start seeing significant losses in that field. Now they also said that it's going to last 8 to 10 years because of what they call just like television and radio still have a certain residual, is because people are nostalgic and they will remember it. But new money is going to be moving into figuring out how to monetize CPG chats and SEO as we know it. All the work I put in for
Mm-hmm.
like 22 years is about to be wiped out. Hmm? They're going to use a completely new algorithm to decide what websites they're going to give out, and
Yeah.
they're not even sure what they're going to look like because they're inside the algorithmic box of these AIs. They don't even know what it looks like completely.
Well, chances are it'll still use some sense of large language models on top of neural networks
Hmm.
to an extent. They'll continue to evolve that because it's the most neural networks are the most flexible to implement any type of function like that. They'll just
Hmm.
continue to expand that. But I was going to ask you, Ed, is there a sense that you also want to, because you've gone to the Parliament of World Religions quite a bit, how do you see
Every time.
maybe, yeah, and how do you see integrating some of, do you see integrating some of your principles alongside theirs? Because they do talk about harmony, looking for cultural commonality. What's your thoughts
We
there?
oh, I think I have a big job ahead of me, right? Okay, so from 93 where we were not in any sort of percentage of numbers or anything else and really not being there to a highly measurable, at least one tradition being church being highly measurable with lots of people and things of that nature, having been to the parliament and now recognized, which is the Corellian tradition in of itself of Wicca, plus several of the other ones, we all aligned to be recognized separate of paganism as a world religion. So we had that. And I think that's really very important. So now this time I'm presenting that can algorithm. So my kind of a report. Well, I'm doing. I've been accepted for Journey to the Parliament. So I'm collecting all these stories about how we get to the Parliament and talking about the Parliament to itself. But the other thing I'm bringing for my symposium piece is can peer-to-peer education systems and community developed systems, a little bulky right now, peer-to-peer community development systems lead to preventing extinction of family traditions? And the answer is right now, because this last succession is yes. Not one person, not one officer, not one member inside the Corellian Nativist Church didn't come through the algorithm of Witch School, the website, or through the Daily Spell, through the online systems. Only Don, Crystal, and Jason. Jason's a hybrid. He was the last of the family members that are still on the board. Everyone else has come through the system that we created, algorithm online. So when people ask me, well, can you change the world? The world's largest Wiccan tradition was created primarily from online, a lot of online work, and manages from an online point of perspective. So that's what I'm going to the Parliament of World Religion, and I brought this in 2009, and I presented this class. Now this is a number of years later. And you know what the number one problem in that class is? How do we make sure that people aren't who are not supposed to teach are teaching? The biggest thing I talked in front of the Islamic leaders and Christian leaders, and the most common thing was how do we prevent people from doing our in 2009 to teaching our stuff? And I
You
said,
can.
well, I told them the only ways you can do it is make sure that you identify. I talked about markers and branding, right? And having some sort of official seal that somebody can go to, or some body that's inside your organization that can clear it. Otherwise, I said, but you can't prevent anybody from doing it. And they thought that was chaos. They were like, They were wickedly angry with me for even mentioning these concepts. I don't think they're going to be any less this time. I'm planning to bring a baby chatbot. So some people are hearing it for the first time. I've been mentioning this. I'm bringing a brand new baby chatbot with me. And the minute you open the parliament, I'm going to push the button, and it's going to get its answers and questions, and I'm going to try to see get as much blank slate as I can, and just see what it learns from the Parliament of World Religions. Hmm?
That's interesting. Yeah. You just reminded me
Yes.
also of the film Bicentennial Man. It
Mm-hmm.
made me think about how, in the future, what kind of life will we need to also extend rights to? Maybe this baby chatbot that takes on a life of its own with its intelligence, we give it respect as well, and certain equal rights, So that's another thing, because Parliament of World Religions, what would it look like 20 years from now? What
Mm-hmm.
kind of rights are they going to be talking about that might not be the same as today, that might have evolved in what we're talking about, diverse life, diverse sentience, so to speak. Not to unravel what you're saying, but it's so interesting that
Oh,
you brought that out.
I don't think they're gonna like a lot of what I have to say. I mean, I don't think they like. So religions are. If governments are slow to technology, religions are even slower. This is a big threat to
This
them. Hmm.
this is a
Well,
great point.
religion is the providence of the soul. So
Mm.
does technology have a soul?
Well, I so I believe again. I go back to Kevin Kelly, which he's one of the things he's really speculated is that technology is the seventh order of life. It does parallel life in a lot of ways, and technology wants things, and technology does seem to have some sort of life essence of its own. But it's like asking very much are rocks. Do rocks have energy, or if they have souls? We're back into animism. We believe in an animist world, or do we have a division between
And I'm
spirit,
throwing
material?
it out just as a question for discussion.
Yeah, when I
I'm
heard you
not
say that,
saying that technology cannot have a soul.
no, but I might flip that also. What you just made me think about again is um, rigid religious institutional structures that hinder the
Hmm.
flexibility to think and adapt to the changing times. And that to me is a significant concern. It's probably completely
It,
unrelated to where you're going. But when you mention religion, because I think there's commonality we have with all the wisdom, there's certain threads of commonality. The human condition across different wisdom traditions. But I
Hmm.
think in a lot of ways we need to be flexible, and it's those who have the best flexibility. You're centered in what you think is the truth, but you're flexible enough that you're not overly attached, that you can't change if you're convinced of something. But then you have to guard your brain too,
exactly.
right? Because ever more than ever, something could be presented as truth, but you're going to have to dissect it, because now it's going to be easy to put anything out there. But I think our community has the ability more than some of the more rigid religious institutional structures, because
Hmm.
we honor free thinking in that sense. And I guess that's where I
And
was going with that, Mary.
Well, I
yeah,
think.
and I was thinking more of the religious
Mhm.
institution I grew up within rather than
Mhm.
pagan structures.
All right, so let's go ahead and answer some questions here. Uh, uh, Tawny says, "I like that, whatever it was a while ago." So thank you, Deborah Orff. Or would a soul be attracted to inhabit a tech body versus a traditional corporeal body? I think there's no reason for it not to. It's a really big question, though. It's what is the soul? We haven't answered that question.
And I actually have a sci-fi story I've worked on for the last 20 years that deals with this very topic. And maybe I'll finally get it started up again as part of this new reality,
It,
because
it,
it,
may-
it
it,
actually
It
explored that
sounds
very
like the
concept.
time, Cosmo.
uh you better do it because that science fiction might become science fact.
Oh my God, it's passing us up now. I
Yeah,
lost out on that.
yeah, right. Then Bradley says, Bradley Fosberry, thank you, says technology needs energy to be alive. Without energy, it dies. Don't all living things require energy to survive? It's at least an interesting thought, at least. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Well, there's a big argument that it does so. So my toy, the Photovore, has only one purpose. It has big solar detectors and a body with a little AI program. That's all its main job is to do is to search out light and make its battery 100%. And then when its battery is 100%, it does something with it. It can chirp. It can, feed it to a battery. And then when it gets down low enough, just low enough to hunt it, it'll go out and hunt for light and then come back and hunt a light. It could be a light harvester. It could be any number of things. But the simple concept of it is it'll be a small AI whose only job is to collect energy and then move it to someplace else. That's it. That's a photovore. So I really like that. That's my toy, but it's also part of that idea. Um, so that's a living thing. That it becomes. And then if I build a hive for it, like i.e., it learns to start to find the minerals it needs and then feeds it to a 3D replicator system it calls Mother, and it makes more of them. We got replicators. I mean, we're really close to having some of these fantasy machines. Everything I've just said, the photovore machine is not actually difficult to make. It's really now having about $20,000 to build a prototype.
What's
That's
the difference between a replicator and a 3D print?
motivation.
And maybe nanotech technology particles that are used to construct. So
One's 3D. So uh, the 3D printers to replicators are the comparison of this type of phone. Hey, the old crank telephones to the modern mobile phone.
I'll just point out, the charms on the hat I'm wearing were
Yeah.
my Yule present from a dear friend.
Yes, Tawny. Lav, your baby chat about soaking in religious leaders. I'm really am interested in that experiment. And I've been looking at different ways of doing it. I've been talking to people. Like I could hook it up to a Sirius machine allowed to be verbal. I can also have it on my laptop so people can type to it. Um, and there's a company called Personal.ai that's kind of taken an interest to it. I've got a couple of people taking an interest to the idea of taking a completely young, unrelated. People are actually really kind of interested to see what would happen saturated in an environment of pure religiosity. Hmm? But that's what we're going to do. We're going to do more experiments like that. People are going to want to create things. I mean, there are going to be. So one of the last things I want to tell people is that if they want to start protecting their language and how they're using their language in the future, now is the time because I think language is going to be more commoditized. I mean, I learned that with Oscars coverage. I did not know that was a trademark thing, but it's trademarked by the Oscars, and they sell that to the companies. It's one part of the whole overall trademarking. They've got like 100 trademarks to it. So Oscars coverage is actually they. If you have Oscar coverage, you're paying the Oscars money, the Academy money. Like okay, so language is becoming commoditized. I mean, more and more. I think when you see Nike come up, it's going to be Nike's going to try to exert its control of having tennis shoes. Every time you see Nike, it's going to try linking you back to its shoes. But we're going to have to fight to have Nike connect to the God. And is that God going to exist in some form in virtual reality as a chatbot or an AI game body? Are we going to have to fight for Thor against Marvel? Are we going to have to fight for Loki against Marvel? Are we going to have to fight the Greek god,
We
for the
may
Greek
have
gods?
to.
See what I'm saying? These are the
Well,
things.
yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, and that also brings up a point. You can see in the cultural
Hmm.
cinema, the stories that we're telling,
Hmm.
we're yearning to push the boundaries of what our imagination can manifest. People are into superheroes and multiverse and timeline and anything that'll stretch our boundaries. And I think you mentioned this, the note of imagination and how we're pushing the inner and external boundaries to connect the dots of what we think could be feasible, what we desire versus what we can implement. And we're definitely in a very rapid process of trying to do
Hmm.
that. And there's a cultural zeitgeist around that, so to speak. And you see it in the art and everything that's driving that.
And I think so. We're just starting to see the beginning. So, folks, watch it. Keep an eye on us and work with us. If you are interested in AI, space, um, I love space stuff. I mean, I think we're going to go out there. I think you know I think there's a lot of to be said for. I think there's a lot to be said. So, I want to offer something that's completely my opinion. It's been a very deeply held belief, and now that I've kind of opened up, we're in the midst of people always say the sixth great extinction event. It may have been more or less, but we're in the middle of an extinction event. At the end of every extinction event, becomes the genesis event. If we can survive the extinction event, we have every right to be a part of the genesis effect, the next genesis. And I think that's something I really kind of hold in my secret heart that happens in the next couple of thousand years, and my soul kind of reincarnates into that world. But really, we're the seeds as much of the next Genesis as we are of this apocalypse. It's a real choice we're making right now. And I think that's the pagan world's decision. I want a future for people. So we're going to create tools and devices and ideas that are going to preserve, protect, and let us advance our ideology against what I feel like is this very strange idea that the world has to die when we're just getting started. Hmm. Yeah, I want to be there
Yeah.
later. Hmm?
Yeah, and we
Uh,
need to have the optimism because, this is the planet, this is the world we've been given. You got to make the most of it, and optimism is what's going to get you through.
mhm.
Um, by the way, Ed, you said you were into space.
Oh yeah.
For anybody who's into space, spacekind.org. I'm a
Hmm.
part of that community. I don't know if you've checked that out, but you might
Oh
be
yeah.
interested in that as well.
Yeah.
I'm actually volunteering for their Yuri's Night here in Los Angeles next month,
Wow.
which is where a lot of the astronauts and the space industry get together.
Hmm.
So I anybody out there who's very interested in taking, the same, they have the same spirit of how they're looking at it, to think more globally, or how we think as a human, collective.
And
Spacekind.org.
And see, this is one of the things I hope that we have more communication with, that we can absorb. So the idea of this super mesh, that the pagan world isn't just about the religious side of it, but how do we get into space? I think that's a great thing. I think
It is.
getting our kids to learn planetology. I mean, at every level. I mean, how do we rebuild a planet? How do we rebuild these systems? I mean, I think there's a lot of. I think the world is ripe for a pagan ethos to come in and lead it. I think it's one of the few things that can do it. Hmm?
Yeah. Mhm.
And so that's what we're excited about. All right, so folks, we've been talking for a while, and thank you for all for joining us. And I'm excited about everything too. Any last thoughts, folks? Yeah, we totally. Yes, Tony, I agree. We totally belong in space. Oh, absolutely. Come on, they're going to have Gaiaologists on every ship to balance the
Absolutely.
to balance the ecosystem. There's no way we're going to space without Gaiologists, or whatever you want to call them, who are going to be maintaining biospheres. I've actually built biospheres in my youth. Oh yeah, cricket sphere, my most famous one, 69 days. My son did it. Um, but the idea of biospheres is closed environmental life support systems, cells. These are going to all be things that it is, and these are all life-oriented sciences. And so, as pagans, this should be like natural for us to be go out and learning about. Herbology in space is going to have a real meaning because these are going to be the raw resources for their medicines. So
Mhm.
herbology
Food
just
in space.
uh,
Food
it,
in space. You're gonna have to grow it.
certainly. So all of these things are going to happen. Well, we could create it out of plastics. We could create food out of petrol. There's lots of ways to create food, right? But is it going to be healthy food? Is it going to be different type of food? I mean, we could go in a lot of different directions, but I think but for pagans, this is a great chance to really live good lives. I don't know, Gaiologists, planetologists, environmental support systems. You know,
A new a new Gaia that goes beyond just this planet, something that
mm,
extends the boundaries of what we consider to be nature and the sacred connection to all of reality, and start to integrate wider boundaries and help others who may not see it that way start to see it that way.
well,
That might
Gaia,
be some.
I no, I agree with you. The idea of Gaia daughters. These seed ships we're going to send out. We're going to be sending out seed ships. I mean, we have to. And I do think that's part of our compulsion as human beings. I think that if you ask anything that I think is a Gaia compulsion, I think that is building those spaceships to take life away from Earth. I think is absolutely a Gaia compulsion in us. I don't think we could. I don't think we have a choice. If we suddenly took out Elon Musk tomorrow and took out a half a dozen of these engineers, another group would just start up again somewhere else. Um, I do think so. I think there's this need to get to other planets. But then human beings have been on the move for 60,000 years. We like
Yeah.
to move around. We're antsy creatures.
Well, if we're going to terraform other planets, we probably ought to practice a little bit better about how to terraform our Earth in the right way and deal with climate and some of the
Oh
disasters. So
yeah.
we might could learn from that and then take that learning to as we start to navigate the stars by necessity.
Or either that or the Earth will turn into idiocracy.
Yeah.
It's then it would be beautiful in space, but oh my God, don't go back to Earth. Uh, we will not solve our problems before we export them. I guarantee we will export the majority of Earth problems that have been with us for the last 6 to 10,000 years will continue to be there. They'll just take on bigger and bigger forms. I certainly hope so. Oh yeah, I think so. Tony was just saying, I think back when they could have been mapping constellations, could they have thought we would be here now worshiping the sky forever? Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence. I mean, I don't know if I believe all the Anunnaki stories. I don't know if I believe the alien stories, but there's certainly been a belief that there's something beyond this planet, physically in the heavens.
Oh my goodness. With so many billions and trillions of galaxies, and each one of those has
Mhm.
billions of stars and potentially habitable planets. My goodness, the
Oh yeah.
statistics just speak for something. And it could have happened in flashes over time.
Oh, sure.
But there's life out there. There's life
There has
likely
to
been out
be.
there, and there will be.
Yeah.
Just too much vastness and for
Mhm.
some of the same conditions that would be conducive. That would be my impression, but
Oh, sure. Well,
what do
well,
I
we'll find
know?
out. I think we'll find out soon enough. I don't think Mars may not be, but we're looking at what was it? A moon, Eros, one of the moons around Jupiter. Uh
62 or so moons.
no, it's an ocean, Europa.
Mm, yeah,
It's like one big ocean. They says that one they're starting to find out has enough heat and enough energy underneath it that it could actually have life.
true. Yeah.
Water-based life. I mean, it looks very Europa, yeah. So we got a lot of things to talk about. But the first thing we got to talk about, and tonight I think we talked about, is the idea we've got to get ourselves ready to think that this change, and we got to start looking at how we're going to take action. And we're offering our different ways, but go out there and play with it today. And so,
Yep. Titan.
any last thoughts, guys? Here you go. One last time.
Oh no, you're gonna keep doing that. We're gonna stretch it. We could do
No,
that. I could go for another hour and then
or
we
no, I got three. I got 2 minutes to fill. There you go.
well,
Uh,
oh, do you have 2 minutes to fill or were you joking?
no, that's exactly what I
Please
have. 2 minutes.
support our Kickstarter at
Oh, there you
witstarter.com
go. There you go.
and help us launch this great experiment.
Hmm. So one of the things we're coming up with, and I may be incorporating AI in this, see if they can do a good job. The lottery experiment. Before it's a luck
Yes.
game and telekinetic game, but maybe we'll turn it into an AI game. That's one of the shows coming up. We're hoping out there, and we'll be back Monday with more of the Daily Spell. But this Sunday, you can see if you've missed any of the Daily Spell this week, except for this one, they'll be next week. You can go on Sunday, and you can also see our Lisa McSherry, the original virtual pagan who helped set a lot of the agenda 30 years ago, talk to us then.
That was a good
Uh,
talk.
Thank you, and you can see it on
I heard.
Sunday.
Yeah.
It was,
Okay.
and
And
yep.
I'll be launching my show, Witch Rising, at the end of this month, looking at paganism and activism.
So much to come on. So we're changing the world a little bit at a time. So good night, folks, and check it out Sunday, and then we'll be back here with the Daily Spell on Monday. Subject
Not
unknown.
everybody.